at least everybody wants you to believe that 27 is the greatest class they've ever seen, because we've been buying 2027 picks now. Well, some people have in Dynasty for how many years? 3 at this point.
Yes.
People have spent about 3 years ruining their teams for this particular class. I guess the answer is going to be, was it worth it? Well, it certainly looks like it's going to be a good class. No, of course it wasn't worth ruining your Dynasty team for 3 years for this class, but it is going to be a fantastic class. I want to give you some strategy for your 27 first, some advice on your 27 first, then we're going to kind of showcase what this class is going to be, who the top names are in this class, what you should be looking forward to with these picks, and how you should handle these rookie picks as you get into your fantasy football and Dynasty fantasy football seasons. Do us a favor, if you enjoy the 2027 class content, drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed. We're going to have coverage for you on this class all the way through next year. It's just a little sneak peek. And this really does, I mean, from a strategy standpoint, real quick, before we get into the players, I want to say something about what you should do with your 27 first, because we do reviews all the time where, you have teams that are going to, or at least projected to be contending teams, where they're asking, okay, what do I do with my 27 first? I'm clearly contending. And I think there's this misconception that you have to trade your 27 first when you're contending. But just a general strategy point for rookie picks in general, what I like to do, especially not only in a startup, but even when I have an established team and I keep my 27 first or my future pick for the next year, I don't like trading that pick in the offseason most of the time, just because I can wait, trade it mid-season, and get somebody I know is going to produce rather than spending out on a potential veteran right now who may not produce next year. I find a lot of times when I'm spending my 27 first straight up for players in the offseason, it doesn't end up working out because the player that I traded the 27 first for gets injured in training camp or isn't performing at a very high level, and I kind of wasted my first. I think trading your first as a contending team is generally a fairly good idea if it helps you get over the hump to actually become a championship team, but not really in the offseason, because you're not winning championships right now in the offseason per se. You can set yourself up to win one, but at the same time, with your 27 first, people are asking, okay, should I move my 27 first? And the general rule that I'm going to give every single one of you watching this video about 27 first is, if you still have your first, unless you are getting a significant value win by moving your 27 first, I am not moving it. Okay, and that goes for contending teams. It goes for elite value teams. It goes for whatever. And look, obviously, if you have a team that is, you are playing in a home league, it's a taco league, you're running away and you're first in your league and it's going to be the 112 guaranteed. Maybe I'll use it. But at the same time, like, every time I see a trade with a 27 first come through on the site, and every time he sees one come through on the site, what we say to ourselves is, are you getting a significant value win by moving this 27 first? If not, it's probably worth holding them. And the price of 27 first really aren't the reason for that logic, because when you're looking at how 27 first, early, mid, and late, are already priced in Dynasty compared to some of these assets that we have. A 27 early first, this is a year and a half away, is already in the second round of Dynasty drafts. By the way, I think the 101 for 27 first should be probably, if I were drafting it today, which we're going to do a couple drafts with 27 picks included in it. We're going to do a startup draft with 26 and 27 picks. It'll be lots of fun. I can tell you how to join one. I would project it to go at the 1-2 turn, and I think that's reasonable. Jeremiah Smith is going to be drafted there, if not higher, when he enters, and we're going to talk about why. But even the mid first for 27, they're already well above 26 first still. Never really seen this with a class. And so when you're talking about why we normally buy picks in Dynasty, we normally buy picks because they're going to go up in value. They're almost always guaranteed to go up in value. And I think these picks still can go up in value, but you have to understand they have a lot less room to grow. And they're also a lot harder to get a hold of, frankly, because people are holding on to them so tight because of the hype. Now, it is a good class, and let's talk about the class before we talk about any repercussions of holding the first too long or buying them too early or things like that, because the class itself is very good. Here's a 27 preview for you. We'll go through all these players, and we're going to start with the wide receiver position. The wide receivers make up, as of right now, when you're using the Z scores based on the Baker, we have preliminary bakery data for all of these guys. Keep in mind, it is so early in preliminary. There is a full year of data that we don't have for these guys yet, and that year is the most important for their bakery score from a production standpoint. So this is completely speculation, but we are working off of what they've done in college so far, and it's kind of an even playing field because all of these guys have not played their final year yet, right? But it is extremely preliminary, and it's also worth noting that these guys with their Z scores, I will say, they are almost as high as this year's class before their senior year. That is absurd.
Yeah.
The strength of this 27 class before you even get their final year of production and analytically is already almost as strong as 26.
Especially with wide receiver depth.
It's insane.
Crazy.
So let's talk about it, and let's talk about the crown jewel of crown jewels of a rookie class. I would say Jeremiah Smith is the most coveted 101 since
Bijan.
I would say more than Bijan. I would say
You'd say Saquon?
probably Saquon, and I think maybe more than I don't think I've ever seen a prospect as heralded as Jeremiah Smith has been
I mean,
for 2 years.
We're talking. I was going to say 2 years ahead of time. We were saying you guys have been tanking your dynasty teams for the 27 class specifically for Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah,
and Ryan Williams, but we'll ignore that. But Jeremiah Smith.
Oh yeah,
like since before he even stepped on the field at Ohio State, people knew that he was going to be really, really good, and he ended up being incredible as a true freshman. But with his bakery score right now, before his final year at Ohio State, before his true junior year, is the highest graded wide receiver in the bakery analytically ever.
Already.
So after 2 years,
he is again.
That's ridiculous.
And I don't think we've ever seen a prospect like that. As long as we've been doing this, like playing Dynasty, he is the best Dynasty prospect we've probably ever covered, which is a lot of fun for us. Like it's awesome. And Smith, it's kind of deserved. I mean, obviously the production profile is there, but he's straight up the best wide receiver in college football. Like he didn't win the Biletnikoff this year. Mekhi Lemon did. But Mekhi Lemon wasn't the best wide receiver in the Big Ten. Like, it was Jeremiah Smith, and it's not even close. This guy is absolutely absurd at football.
Remember the fear of Jeremiah Smith at the Big Ten championship?
Oh, I remember, dude. And he burnt pawns on that go route, and I was like, my gosh, we're cooked.
Yep.
And then somehow we tackled him. But anyways, we won the Big Ten championship. Ohio State, suck it. Look, I mean, 6'3", 223 pounds. He's going to run somewhere in the 4.4s most likely. We have him listed as a prototypical X because of his alignment data. I'm going to try to find his alignment data for his junior year was 81% out wide, obviously 19% in the slot. You had Carnell Tate playing there alongside him as well. He pretty much can do anything. He really can do anything. He is absolutely absurd at every level. And so, you know, without going into a full scouting report of Jeremiah Smith, because you've all seen him play, we've seen him play a bunch. Like, there's nothing the guy can't do. He is the crown jewel. He is the best Dynasty prospect we've ever covered. And so, you know, the problem is, and we saw this on, you know, somewhat of a smaller scale with Bijan Robinson, is people are ruining their Dynasty teams to get this guy. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't usually pan out. One guy in the first round is not going to save your Dynasty team if you blow it up so that your production's so low that you get him. A lot of times, you see somebody want to blow up a Dynasty team for one player, it typically ends up there in a hard rebuild regardless. Yep. And they need to down tier off that player because it's such a hard rebuild. But regardless, I think that Jeremiah Smith is elite, like, and the bakery supports it.
He'll be a top 8 Dynasty wide receiver right out the gate.
He's probably a top 5 Dynasty receiver right out the gate, in my opinion. Like, I would probably rank him there already. And so he's the crown jewel. Now, let's keep going because this wide receiver class, the rest of it is absurd still. We talk about Ryan Williams, and Ryan Williams was one where you saw his freshman year at Alabama, which, I mean, admittedly, I don't think I've ever seen a true freshman have highlights like that. Like, I don't think I've ever seen it. Mm-mm. And it was the yak ability, the spin moves, the deep threat ability for Ryan Williams. And then this year playing with Ty Simpson, I mean, he really never got it going like he did his freshman year. And
he looked almost like borderline disengaged. Like it was so weird.
And I also think part of that was
weird.
And I think you guys would agree with. I think part of that was that he just wasn't utilized correctly in that offense, which is interesting.
He had a lot of drops too, and I'm not one that's going to say like, oh, analytically drops are actually going to be a knock on someone's profile, but he got plenty of opportunities and he just dropped the ball. Literally,
he
dropped the ball.
He did drop the ball.
But I don't know what happened this past season. I think there are a lot of things that factored into it. Alabama was very underwhelming in a lot of ways, but Ryan Williams is one of those guys where, again, like people were putting picks to names 2 years ago with Ryan Williams, expecting him to be the 102 right there alongside Jeremiah Smith, and this is what happens. You still have quite a bit to prove for Ryan Williams this season, and he still is analytically such a good prospect because of what his production profile was his freshman year. But I think that, look, this is one of those guys where, like, if he doesn't show up this season and he has really as many questions on his profile like he did last year, then this is a guy who's going to stay in the NIL era. Like this is always the crazy part and the scary part about any given class is like 2026 was really looking like it wasn't looking great. It wasn't looking that good. it looked worse and worse and worse every single week as the offseason progressed because more and more people decided to go back to school.
It's going to happen every year.
And that's going to happen every single year from here on out. Yep. So it's a little bit of a concern with Ryan Williams. He really has to up his game, I think, to boost his draft stock again.
Interestingly enough, when you're looking at his alignment data in 2024, he played 78% of his snaps out wide. He had 865 yards his freshman year. Again, true freshman and 8 touchdowns. He had 2.51 yards per route run that year. You guys know like that how elite that is, right, for a freshman. And then you go to 2025. He had 631 receiving yards in 2025, which is really hard to believe for a team that had 3,200 passing yards. That Ryan Williams. And so I think it's a big red flag for Ryan Williams, even though his bakery score is still very high. Still 2 yards per route run, so still very efficient. About his alignment data, though, remember, 80% of his snaps were out wide his freshman year. This year, 55% in the slot, 43% out wide. And he had a 17.6% drop percentage this year. 17%. Yeah, that is more than every other wide receiver in the bakery for 2027.
Yeah.
So there are some significant questions with Ryan Williams. I'm not going to... I think people were too quick to crown him last year, even though obviously he was great. But the problem is buying 27 first because you see a freshman that's doing what he did at the wide receiver position at Alabama, it doesn't always pan out. That doesn't mean that the class is going to be weak or the 1 or 2 is going to be weak at all. But this is why putting names to picks too early really can bite you in the butt. And Ryan Williams, I still think as a Dynasty community, we kind of remember what he did his freshman year and we're like, yeah, he's absolutely legitimately elite, no question, blah, blah, blah. Truthfully, he was not elite in 2025. And I think, do I think he can bounce back? Absolutely. Do I think the talent's there? Absolutely. But the build, like he's 175 pounds. Like he's going to run in the 4.3s. I don't know who maybe higher than that. But like what you saw on tape this last year and what you saw from an analytics standpoint, I don't think it's any. Look, I think if I were a betting man right now and I had to pick my 102 next year, I probably would say it would be Ahmad Hardy over Ryan Williams.
I agree.
So, but again, we're going to put names to picks ourselves. It's too early. I'm just saying, Ryan Williams still in that elite light tier in the bakery right now before his junior year. He's got to have a good junior year to really solidify this class. And then Cam Coleman, obviously transferring to Texas, that never makes it easy because it's so hard to evaluate wide receivers in that offense for some reason. It's legitimately impossible.
Yeah, I think Texas might be my least favorite offense to scout, with the exception of maybe Tennessee for wide receivers. But with Texas, I mean, you've had a ton of really high-profile names over the last few years. Matthew Golden of recent, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Isaiah Bond, if you want to call him high profile. The only reason he was is because he had that one catch against Auburn with Alabama the year before that. So look, with Cam Coleman, he actually played for Auburn previously before he transferred to Texas this season. He was pretty productive with Auburn over the last 2 years for a true freshman, true sophomore. Those 2 seasons. Last year, he was 56 receptions, 708 yards, 5 touchdowns. This is solid production, and he's got a pretty solid skill set. He's listed at 6'3", 200 pounds. So again, he's going to be a bigger body wide receiver who could, potentially play an alpha role, a true alpha role in an offense in Texas, where Arch Manning really has to take quite a bit of a step up this season. We'll talk about him as well as a prospect. But with Coleman and what he was able to do in, I think, a less than ideal situation in Auburn, where it will improve, even though you have questions with Arch Manning, I still think that's a better overall situation than what you had at Auburn. That's why he transferred there.
It is.
You have a really, really good route for Coleman to boost his stock quite a bit when it already is pretty high. So we feel pretty solid about Coleman this year. And I think if he, again, can have 1,000-yard season production-wise with Arch Manning paired with him, I think you're going to be looking at a guy who's got a lot of first-round upside.
I think so, too. And then you're talking about Nick Marsh, transfer from Michigan State to the Indiana Hoosiers, our crown jewel of our transfer class this year, him and Josh Hoover. And look, Hoover is the most productive college QB in Division I right now.
That was such a classic SIG pick.
It was, and IU's going to be top 5 good again next year. But with the proven production, like that is a Signetti thing. Nick Marsh is going to absolutely eat in that offense. And a lot of people want to talk about Charlie Becker too, and we'll talk about him later in this video. But Marsh really is the guy that has the pedigree that was, a very heralded wide receiver prospect coming out of high school. And, already has that elite separator tag. Our first guy we've talked about, Jeremiah Smith was an elite earner. Ryan Williams is a poor earner. Cam Coleman's a poor separator. We have our first elite separator in Nick Marsh. He really is an elite separator. I know because IU played in Michigan State last year, and I got to see legitimately 60 minutes of him just slicing up our number 1 defense in the past how many years in college football. It was the highest rated defense in it's been a long time. And Marsh was incredible. And, you know, he is primarily an X guy. He's 6'3", 203 pounds. You know, when you're looking at his alignment data for 2025, he's out wide 93% of the time. And so he is a guy that's going to be out wide. However, he is, for somebody who is an X wide receiver, a very good separator, like it says on his prospect profile here. And so obviously going to IU, going to a much better situation, one of the best programs in the country, one of the best coaching staffs in the country, a coaching staff that just pumped out probably a first-round wide receiver pick in Omar Cooper Jr., who was, you know, recruited by Tom Allen at Indiana, didn't do anything there, really didn't do anything last year as well. I mean, it wasn't even really outproducing Miles Price last year in that offense. And this year, the jump was so big that he's getting first-round buzz for this year's draft. And Elijah Surratt, who came with Curt Cignetti from JMU and put together, I mean, he was one of the best wide receivers in college football, really for 2 years, and now is being talked about as a second-round pick in this draft. So clearly a coaching staff that obviously has a very good track record of wide receivers. Do remember that Curt Cignetti was Julio Jones' wide receiver coach at Alabama, so very good history with wide receivers all across the board for Curt Cignetti. But Marsh, I mean, you're talking about his production should really raise his bakery score year over year, and he's going into a situation where he'll be able to more than prove himself this year at IU. If he were to be disappointing, that would obviously suck for his stock, but he is a guy that could go top 5 next year in rookie drafts because of the skill set that he has, the intangibles, and also, again, going to a situation where his production profile could be boosted so much that his analytical scores could jump quite a bit, guys. And you're looking already, I want to just read his yards per route run in 2025 was actually super low, 1.72, compared to some of the other top guys. I mean, 1.74 was Cam Coleman's as well, and so that's kind of typical. In 2020-24, that was 2.1, and so a little bit better there. And again, part of that was because he was running every route on the field. Quarterback situation at Michigan State, I don't remember what their was it Childs was the guy's name this year, the dual threat guy. Not ideal. So I think Nick Marsh is going to be somebody who could be a top 5 pick next year in an already very good wide receiver class. And then we've got some guys here that really have a lot to prove that we won't spend a ton of time on, but they're also going to be in the mix.
Yeah, a lot of names here that, again, you're going to see a number of names from this list end up being eventual risers. A number of them will be fallers to a borderline like irrelevant analytical tier. But starting with Bryant Wesco out of Clemson, he's been decently productive his first 2 seasons. We'll see what he can do this year in that situation. Ryan Wingo, the other Texas Longhorn, who's actually been with Texas the last couple of years. He took a really big step up last year, had over 800 receiving yards. You've got Mario Craver, the A&M guy, who had 900 receiving yards last year. A&M actually has an intriguing quarterback prospect that we'll talk about later this video as well, Marcel Reed. He's got a really good arm. He's very inaccurate, though, so we'll see what happens there with Mario Craver. Then you got TJ Moore, who analytically is in a really solid tier, that yellow tier. He's also with Bryant Wesco at Clemson. And then we got Nick Harbor and Deuce Robinson, 2 guys who we actually did a lot of scouting analysis on this season because they were guys that were eligible to go to the draft this year. Nick Harbor is literally, like, from a measurables perspective, he is DK Metcalf. He's got a lot to work on from a route running perspective at South Carolina. Deuce Robinson is another really big guy that's actually a bit more versatile as a route runner, more than people give him credit for. He's actually very intriguing. KJ Duff, Eugene Wilson was another one of those guys that transferred to LSU this year. He's staying for another season, so we'll see what he can do with Sam Levitt and the new Lane Kiffin era there. Wyatt Young, and then Charlie Becker, our guy. Charlie Becker, we have him in the a lot to prove tier because, again, he was part of you just wonders, and a lot of people are going to wonder, okay, analytically, he's got a lot to prove there. He's got to move up boards a ton because he didn't produce very much before this season, really halfway through this season, and how much of his production at the end of the year came from Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt commanding so much attention defensively. So can he do that again with Nick Marsh this year? That's going to be a big question. And then Amari Thomas, another guy that was eligible this year and is coming back for another season.
All right, let's pivot over and talk about some of the running backs now in this class. If you'd like access to see the full Z-score data and also see some of the 27 guys, I'm going to put something over on the site for our annual Mother Flockers with Code Domain. If you want to dive into this data early and also get some insight on this 2027 class, you can come and join. Get a free team blueprint for one of your Dynasty teams as well when you sign up. Get access to our Discord, all the site tools, as well as some of this 2027 data. And so, again, flockfantasy.com/domain. If you use code domain, become a member. We're in our Mother Flocker March right now. 175 new members, and we're doing an all-night live stream this year. And so we're trying to hit that goal. We also got a couple other prizes as well that we're reaching for. But go check it out. And again, if you want to get access to some of this data, we're putting it out for our subscribers. We try to give all our subscribers as much data and information as we can, including stuff like this. Let's talk about some of the running backs here. You have to start with Ahmad Hardy out of Missouri. Obviously, true sophomore this last year, and 1,650 rushing yards this year and 16 rushing touchdowns. Okay. Everything about this guy's profile is really good. Missed tackles force. I mean, that jumps off the page right away. Forced 96 missed tackles this year, which is, again, from a measurables perspective on a per game basis, is a very, very high mark for him. And it shows on his tape as well. I think the thing with Ahmad Hardy that everybody's going to immediately talk about that we need to maybe see some improvement for this year is the fact that his freshman year in 2024, he had 8 receptions for 72 yards. And this year he had 6 receptions for 22 receiving yards. I did not stutter. I did not misspeak. That is how many. That's how many. He's had 14 receptions, but he's not even had 100 yards receiving in his college career, and that's a pretty big deal, right? When you're talking about a guy that has the, from a production standpoint on the ground, the dominator rating in the, it's astronomically high. You have to be able to catch the ball a little bit, and again, 14 receptions for 94 yards over 2 years. I mean, we saw Kyron Williams have that in a game this year against San Francisco. So, let's just acknowledge that that's something that we're going to want to see from Ahmad Hardy. 5'10", 210 pounds is about what we have for him as a sophomore. And again, second in D1 in yards, fourth in carries, obviously got a ton. And then 6.4 yards per carry as well. He's really efficient. Those are the really, again, I think if this guy had elite receiving upside, he would be very heralded as a prospect, and I think he still is. But again, when you're looking at some of his bakery analytics, really the only ding on his profile is his receiving dominator rating is as low as it can be. And part of that, of course, was that I think they had another back there that was taking a lot of the receiving workload there. But at the same time, you want to see that from Ahmad Hardy. Obviously, we're going to have to do some deep dives on guys who have been so rushing heavy without any receiving production to speak for in college and see where those guys ended up. But I think right now, Ahmad Hardy, you're looking at him in terms of where his Z-score is compared to these guys. He's sitting right in the middle of this big pack of wide receivers. It's Smith, Williams, Coleman, and then Hardy, and then Marsh and Wesco. And so I think he has, I mentioned earlier, 102 upside, though. From on the ground, on his tape as a runner, from a college production standpoint, I think the profile kind of speaks to that. Again, I want to see more receiving usage for Ahmad Hardy in 2026. We'll see if we get it. But he is obviously somebody that we need to keep talking about. And he's really probably the only great running back prospect we have for next year. We have a lot of solid guys that, they could be good, but we're going to have to see.
Yeah, and it starts with the running back duo in Louisville, Kewan Brown and Isaac Brown. Both of these guys, in their own unique right, have some really, really intriguing traits here. They're very complementary backs. Isaac Brown, as a true freshman in 2024, actually had 1,100 rushing yards. And then Kewan Brown, again, kind of started to eat into that workload this season with 700 rushing yards to Isaac Brown's 800. The efficiency for both of these guys on the ground, dating back multiple years, is unreal. It is so good, like premier level. 8.8 yards per carry on 101 rushing attempts for Isaac Brown this season.
Holy smokes.
8.8. Then you had 7.3 yards per carry for Kewan Brown as well. The one thing that Kewan Brown has over Isaac Brown, because he doesn't get as much efficiency and usage on the ground, it is close to a 50-50 split, but Kewan Brown's receiving ability, his explosiveness on a per reception basis is awesome. It's about 10 yards per reception. Isaac Brown has pretty much no receiving chops. He can catch the ball. He actually had 30 receptions in 2024. Isaac Brown did, but you're looking at 5 yards per reception or less. So he's less of really a weapon there. There's a reason that his usage was cut in half in 2025 in the air, because Kewan Brown is so much more efficient there. So that's worth keeping an eye on both of these guys. I could honestly see one of them kind of being elevated over the other. But again, it's just tough to tell at this point in time. But that run game in Louisville is so explosive and so good. It's one of the better ones in the country because of both of these guys. And we've seen, again, committee backfields like at Ohio State a year ago with Quinshon and Henderson. We've seen those guys both get really, really good draft capital. So eyes on both of these running backs in Louisville. And then we got Hollywood Smothers, who we were a huge fan of this past season. We were pretty devastated when he decided to go back. That was one of the ones that really killed the outlook of the early second round, especially of this class. And Hollywood, I think, has a lot of opportunity to honestly maintain the hype that he had this past season. And I think he can keep that going in 2026 if he has another productive year. Kewan Lacy out of Ole Miss, obviously you saw his run, multiple runs, I guess, in the CFP, especially against Georgia, one of the better defenses in the league, right? And he had a couple of breakaway runs that were really impressive. He's got a lot of juice. I like him a lot. He's really young as well. So if he comes out, you're going to be looking at a really good analytical profile there as well, someone who I think is going to be in high demand. And then Nate Frazier out of Georgia is another guy that has been pretty solid and has room to move up this season as well. We'll see what happens with him. 5'10", 210 is what he's currently listed at. He had just under 1,000 rushing yards this season and good averages across the board. Gets a decent amount of receiving usage as well. Nothing crazy from an efficiency perspective there, but it's there. It's on the tape. It's on the film. So we'll see what happens with him, but we feel pretty solid about him.
Yeah, and also like his Bakery score is kind of in the toilet right now, but when you're looking at how scouts have this 27 class ranked, he's a guy that is there on every single list. And so worth talking about him, while also noting that compared to some of the other guys in this class, the analytics are not there for him yet. There's a lot of guys in this class that could work their way up that we're going to talk about. Just cover real quick because, again, we're not 100% sure about a lot of these guys. I think this next, I honestly think these four guys could be included with this, that group of five we just mentioned. Waymond Jordan out of USC. I love Waymond. I freaking love Waymond Jordan. I wish he would have come out this year. Obviously, transferred to USC, and we don't have a ton of analytics on him because he wasn't even playing in D1. He was playing in JUCO before he transferred to USC. But I love him as a runner. I loved his tape this year. I loved watching him play. And he was at Hutchinson before he was at USC. I couldn't even remember the college. And so I like Waymond Jordan a lot. I think he could be a potential riser as well when you're talking about 27 running backs. Justice Haynes, obviously transferred from Michigan to Georgia Tech. And another guy that didn't come out this year. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, playing at Georgia Tech, I think he still could be somebody who's relevant next year. I'm not counting on it, but I think it's possible.
His traits are his traits.
We also don't love Justice Haynes.
Love Justice Haynes, but he's got some downfield explosiveness, but he's not necessarily laterally quick. He's kind of a bowling ball.
LJ Martin out of BYU. We talked about him a lot this year. Darius Taylor out of Minnesota. We talked about him a lot this year. Great
I like
receiving.
LJ Martin a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I like Taylor too if he can stay healthy. And then also Mark Fletcher from Miami. Everybody saw what he's capable of. He doesn't have a good Bakery score either. He's where is he even at here? He's pretty low. So again, he's gonna have to really take a step up from a production standpoint this next year. And then we would be remiss not to mention Turbo Dick, aka Turbo Richard, who it goes by Turbo Dick, and S tier name obviously, but transferred him from Boston College to IU. You just saw IU put Roman Hemby and Kalen Black into, Roman Hemby was at the combine, Black should have been. They're both probably going to get drafted or be guys that are signed right after the draft. They're both, and they really weren't, in my opinion, in years heralded as Turbo Richard is. And so we like old Turbo Dick as well, and we'll see where that goes. But
you just never know. Kobe Martin is right down there too as well. He can end up being in that workload. Man. We like Kobe Martin. And
then a bunch of guys. Jaden Ball from Florida, Marcellus Hawkins, Virginia Tech, Jordan Marshall, Quintravion Wisner, Weisner. We've obviously talked about him a lot. Fluff Bothwell.
That's the best name by far.
Is it the best name we've ever heard?
Yes.
Okay. I like that. We are big Fluff Bothwell name guys. I'm just letting you know right now. Cam Edwards and Caden Durham. We don't have time to talk about all these guys in depth, but these are all guys we're keeping an eye on. It's kind of a wide open running back class for, as heralded as the whole class is. I think Hardy even has his questions. Yeah. Kewan Brown.
It's really heralded. It seems like it's very heralded because of wide receiver and QB.
Kewan Brown out of Louisville. Nobody really talks about him as a prospect for 27B, but his analytics are so good. I think.
Yeah, I know both of theirs are Kewan.
And Isaac Brown is too. So obviously Smothers. I think the top guys, according to most people, are Hardy. I would say Baugh is a guy that I hear about a lot.
He has
from
good
scouts.
analytics.
And then probably Nate Frazier. Those are really the guys I hear a ton about. It's wide open. It's wide open. So we'll see. But it has the talent to be a very deep and solid running back class, as well as a very good quarterback class. We have a ton of quarterbacks here.
Yeah, it starts with the two guys. Again, we don't have any guys that we feel great about at the quarterback position because guess what? Every single time we feel great about quarterbacks heading into a season, something ridiculous happens and they either go back to college. It is such a mixed bag and so many unknowns with these QBs. It literally is One season, they're great, they declare. One season, they suck, and they're stuck in college for the next 2 to 3 seasons. So Dante Moore and Julian Sayin, we feel very good about. Dante Moore obviously had early season Heisman hype. Julian Sayin had late season Heisman hype and was a finalist there. Dante Moore, we thought, should have declared to the NFL draft this year. He would have given, in our opinion, we would have picked Fernando 101 over Dante Moore. A lot of people and a lot of scouts had Dante Moore graded as the first overall quarterback off the board over Fernando Mendoza because of traits this season, and he decided to go back to school. So we'll see what he can do this year, hopefully take another step up, because he did have some shortcomings, I think, last year.
As a starter.
It was his first year as a starter, though. So, again, you understand why he decided to stay, but, man, I wish he had declared. Julian Sayin, again, is a guy that with Ohio State, you can't do much wrong there in that situation, but he really has elevated that offense to a whole nother level. From an efficiency perspective last year, that was one of the most efficient Ohio State offenses that I think we've ever seen until, the end when IU kicked their butt. So that is going to be an interesting one to watch with Sayin. I like him quite a bit. And then a ton of guys, a massive, massive list of players who could literally go back to school and be irrelevant, or they could end up being top prospects. And that starts, guys that have a lot to prove, that starts with Arch Manning. It really does, guys. We don't feel very great about Arch Manning. We don't feel super confident about him. We don't think that he's a great guaranteed prospect. For whatever reason, he's still projected often as like the 101 in 2027 way too early mocks. Like, what are we talking about? What has this guy done to actually indicate that he's even going to be a top 5 pick yet? That could obviously change, and he could be phenomenal this year. That's very possible. We want to give him a break, just like Dante Moore, who was only a first-year starter. This was Arch Manning's first year starting as well. That being said, he looked a lot worse than a guy like Dante Moore or Julian Sayin as a first-year starter. So as a passer, consistent accuracy, just vision down the field, like he seemed very indecisive. There's a lot of work to be done there for him. Darian Mensah, who transferred from Duke to Miami. That's a very good situation for him. Tied to Malachi Toney. Brendan Sorsby, who's a pre-IU guy, then Cincinnati guy, and now he's playing for, I've spaced, where's Sorsby at now? Is he at Texas Tech? Yeah, Texas Tech. That's a good situation
for him. He got paid like $1 bajillion to go there.
Yeah, quite a bit. Sam Levitt, who took a step back again. Sam Levitt, one of those guys where it's like, oh, he's going to be one of the top quarterback prospects in 2026. Ends up not having a good year, injury riddled, has to play another year, goes to LSU. This is a prove-it year for him. Drew Mestemaker?
Yes, that's how I understand
he transfers from North Texas to Oklahoma State, follows his head coach. He's a guy to watch. He was a top transfer portal prospect this season as well. Follows his head coach, Josh Hoover, out of IU. Damon Williams, Lenora Sellers. Lenora Sellers is a guy that we liked and then didn't like, was trash. He's got probably the most to prove out of anybody in this list. Gunnar Stockton is the most mid of mid. Marcel Reed has a ton of really promising athletic traits. Kind of reminds me of Sellers because he just sprays the ball all over the field. He's very inaccurate. CJ Carr, out of, I think, is he Notre Dame? Or is that CJ Bailey?
No,
CJ Carr's a Notre Dame guy. Trinidad Chambliss, who we would have liked more this year if he comes out, which is, I guess, still not a guarantee that he's going to go back because the NCAA is still appealing his appeal. So we'll see what happens there. But I guess we're just putting him in both classes. Byron Brown, DJ Lagway, CJ Bailey, and Jaden Mayava are all guys
people really like Mayava. And I was when I was watching the tape this year for Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, I was not that impressed personally, but he is somebody that I think could be in that top tier as well.
Yeah, Damon Williams is a guy to watch as well from Washington.
And then a couple tight ends here. Jamari Johnson, we love Jamari Johnson out of Oregon. We obviously saw him play in person this year, and we were thoroughly impressed with him. We like him as a prospect a lot. Outside of that, though, I mean, next year's tight ends, you really don't get a good idea of the tight ends until after that season happens. And so Luke Haas, I think is how you say it, from Ole Miss. It's probably worth talking about him, mentioning him on here, and then Trey'Dez Green. And so we don't really, again, we don't know. And I'm sure there are guys, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, I'm sure there are guys we missed. Like, a part of that is because we have 50 guys on here, and we don't know. Like, you really can't know until their senior year, like, who the top guys are going to be.
The fact that we have 50 relevant guys to talk about at this point, though, is a really good sign. I mean, I remember this time last season when we started looking ahead to the 2026 class, we were like, okay, the depth is going to come, the depth is going to come, the depth is going to come, because we couldn't find anybody beyond the top 16. that weren't quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's looking pretty decent.
So there you go. And again, like the point about a 27 first still stand. Unless you're getting a big value in, you're not trading them right now. In terms of trading for them, I think you can get them as rebuilding teams, and so you can try to get them in deals, things like that. I see 27 first move frequently. They are still getting moved. They are a little bit expensive, but in a lot of leagues, they're still very achievable when you're not playing with psychos. And so with your 27 picks, obviously this is what's coming, and we're going to continue to monitor this class as we get into next year. It should be a very, very fun. Once 26 is out of the way, this year that we're going to have covering 27 is going to be a blast of blasts. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. We obviously play Dynasty ourselves, and we like making Dynasty content. So if you enjoy Dynasty content, we got it here for you twice a week and 2 live streams a week as well. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you soon.